Hey folks, and welcome to CarStarz' 10 Wild Facts about Jon's 78 GMC Sierra C/K1500 pickup in the 1977 to 1983 television series, CHiPs. Fact number 1. Although an exact count is not available, there were several 1978 GMC 1500 Sierra Classic Fenderside pickups used to portray Jon's vehicle over the 6-year run of the show. Notice I didn't specify K1500 model trucks exclusively, as most of you would have probably expected, and that was intentional because although most indeed were K1500s, not all of them were actually 4x4s, but we'll get into the details of that a bit later on. Any records on the sourcing of trucks used to portray Jon's GMC are quite thin, hence why we don't have the actual truck count here, but the raw source of them and the reasoning behind it is clear at least. It was through a typical GM placement deal. In the late 1970s, automakers and vehicle placement companies were pushing hard to have television and films feature their new vehicle models as a promotional avenue. In this case, a clean and sporty GMC pickup. It looked current, useful, playful, and distinctive without needing any explanation. For the series, it gave Jon Baker a believable personal truck. For GMC, it put one of their sharp 4x4 pickup models in front of a massive audience during an era when off-road trucks, especially four-wheel drives, were becoming more of an Americana icon than just being utility vehicles. The truck also fit the kind of image GMC would have wanted attached to it. Jon was young, outdoorsy, athletic, and usually shown as the more strongly witted half of the main duo. Giving him a bright blue 4x4 pickup made the vehicle feel aspirational without being too showy. It was not a luxury car, but nor was it a beat-up workhorse. It sat right in the sweet spot, practical enough to feel real, but clean and colorful enough to make viewers take notice and associate it with the Jon character. That is exactly why a manufacturer-connected supply arrangement makes sense here, even without surviving paperwork describing every detail. Fact number 2. Under the hood, Jon's GMC trucks ran the gamut of stock GM small block V8s for the era. Those engines being the 305, the 350, and the 400. These were not high-revving performance engines, of course, and yes, they were low-compression, emissions-era truck motors, but they still put out decent everyday torque, were easy to service, and were plenty durable enough to handle some rough stuff. Depending on the specific year, setup, and particular application, the small block range sat roughly from the 140 up to mid-180s net horsepower-wise, with torque generally landing from the mid-230s to 300 pound-feet. That is modest by modern standards, but it was plenty enough to give a short bed 4x4 plenty of useful punch for the cameras. The most common engine on set being the 350, the classic middle ground of the lineup. It had more pep than the 305 without stepping into heavier big block territory, and it was one of the most used GM truck engines of the period as well. None of these engines screamed like a wild muscle car build from the factory, of course. However, they were smoother, quieter, and more workmanlike, which actually fits the way that both Jon and his truck behave on screen. It moves with confidence, but it never comes across like some power-drunk tire-melting street machine. Backing those small blocks in this case was the Turbo Hydra-Matic 350, better known as the TH350. A 3-speed automatic transmission without overdrive, but it gave the truck decent launch feel jaunting around town, while highway cruising efficiency depended heavily on axle gearing and tire size. The TH350 was certainly not glamorous or even gas-saving for that matter, but it was simple, widely used back then, and well matched to small block torque output. For a television production truck that needed to reliably start, drive, idle, and also survive repeated hard use and abuse, that combination fit the bill for the role. Fact number 3. The third-generation GMC C/K series pickup trucks arrived for 1973 as part of GM's all-new rounded line pickup family, even though ironically most people now call these models square bodies. However, compared with the previous model trucks, these look cleaner, wider, and more modern for the time, with a cab that felt less like a bare workbox and more like something a person could live with and use every day. GMC marketed the premium Sierra trim as the more upscale option in the lineup, aimed at buyers who wanted truck toughness without giving up comfort or style. That made it a strong fit for the late 1970s market, when pickups were beginning to move beyond farms, job sites, and towing duty into regular personal transportation and recreation. This generation of GMC pickups gave buyers ample choice of options. You could get two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, short or long beds, wide-side or Fenderside bed styles, and trims that range from basic work truck spec to nicer Sierra Grande and Sierra Classic models. Depending on the year and configuration, buyers could add things like air conditioning, premium interiors, power steering, power brakes, automatic transmission, rally wheels, auxiliary fuel tanks, sliding rear glass, and trailering packages. GMC was not selling one narrow idea of a truck. It was selling a platform that could be a contractor's tool, a weekend camper hauler, a family second vehicle, or a sharp personal 4x4. That flexibility is why these trucks became such a strong part of American vehicle culture. A GMC pickup could be ordered plain enough for hard daily use, but also dressed up enough to feel like something worth showing off in the driveway. By the late 1970s, that image had real appeal. More buyers wanted trucks that looked capable, but also comfortable and individual. GMC leaned right into that shift, offering trucks that still had ladder frames, solid capability, and honest utility, but with colors, trims, and options that made them feel more unique and special. Jon's custom-painted blue GMC Sierra Classic fit perfectly into that moment in time, when pickups were becoming lifestyle vehicles as much as work vehicles. Fact number 4. As for what modifications were made to the trucks to read as Jon's personal GMC pickup, the most obvious being the custom blue paint and graphics over the original tan paint, but it was the add-on accessories that gave it that special late 70s sport truck recipe, such as the body paint match single-bar Hickey Enterprises sport bar mounted in the Fenderside bed. Mounted atop of that bar were a pair of KC Highlights off-road lights, giving the truck the right desert runner appeal for an off-road loving California highway patrolman's personal 4x4. Up front, a paint match body style matching Hickey Enterprises grill guard was also added to tie off the look nicely. Although many people assumed that the truck's wheels were some aftermarket model, they were actually just paint matched GM15 by 8.6 lug 8-spoke steel truck wheels, the correct factory style 4x4 steel spokes for this era. They just had chrome center caps and polished wheel trim rings, which gave the wheels just enough shine without losing the tough utility look also. The paint-matched blue spokes are a big part of why the truck looks so custom on screen, because they further continue the same theme as the body, side graphics, sport bar, and grill guard. If you wanted to buy these wheels new today, they are essentially the same wheels as the still available US brand 70 series. The tire choice completed the off-road inspired appeal, the quite common for the time, BF Goodrich radial all-terrain TA tires with the raised white letters out. Those tires always help a 4x4 look ready to take on dirt, sand, and weekend excursions without turning it into a dedicated professional treaded race truck. The truck also kept a stock, non-lifted stance, so the accessories did not overwhelm the factory lines. Between the custom paint job, the Hickey Enterprises hardware, KC Highlights lighting, painted GM 8-spoke steel wheels, chrome trim rings, and BF Goodrich all-terrains, Jon's GMC landed in that sweet late 70s zone where a pickup could look rugged, personal, and cool without going overboard. Fact number 5. I know many of you must be wondering, what's the deal with the abrupt change of vehicle for the Jon character anyway? Well, Jon's sudden switch from the yellow Mini Cooper to the very different GMC pickup in Season 2, Episode 3 came down to practical image. Larry Wilcox, who played Jon Baker, later explained that producer Rick Rosner felt that the little foreign car was not man enough for Jon Baker. That one opinion changed the direction of Jon's off-duty vehicle instantly. The Mini just gave Jon an unusual look, especially a right-hand drive version, which isn't ideal for the US in general, so Rosner wanted something stronger, more rugged, and more traditionally masculine and American. A slick blue 4x4 pickup solved that mismatch problem well. The truck gave him a tougher visual identity the moment it appeared and was much more of a proper fit for the character. Although, Wilcox actually felt a real connection to the Mini interestingly, so the switch was not just a forgettable prop shuffle for him personally. He said he loved that car, and he later bought a Mini for his son Derek. That detail shows how much the original car meant to himself, even though the show moved in a different direction. Rosner's call ultimately won because television is visual, brand deals bring in money, and Jon needed a vehicle that matched the version of the character that the series wanted to sell. The GMC gave him a cleaner action hero profile while still keeping him grounded as a believable off-duty highway patrol officer. Not to mention, the change just made a lot more sense in general as the pickup lined up better with Jon's background and personality. He was presented as steady, athletic, outdoorsy, and a more down-to-earth and serious guy than Ponch, so a short bed 4x4 made that image easier to read at a glance. It gave him something practical without making him look boring, and something cool without making him look too outlandish. The change also gave the show more flexibility. The truck could show up at apartments, dirt roads, beach areas, weekend trip scenes, and action setups without feeling out of place. Rick Rosner wanted Jon in something with a more masculine presence, and the GMC did exactly that. Fact number 6. For all the attention that went into keeping Jon's GMC recognizable and consistent throughout the show, which they did quite a good job of for the most part, the license plates became the strangest and downright bizarre inconsistency on it. The truck kept its familiar blue paint scheme and accessory setup consistent, so at a quick glance it feels like the same dependable pickup every time it rolls into frame. When the truck first appears in the show, it carries California plate 1E49944, and that number continues throughout Season 2. That gives the first impression of the truck having a clean and solid visual identity, but once you start tracking the plates after that though, the plate numbers just go all willy-nilly on us. During the first half of Season 3, the plate suddenly changes to 1E49937. The truck itself maintains the same exact look, however, so this is one of those details most viewers never catch unless they are actively looking for it. Then, late in Season 3 it changes again, this time to 1E49907, then once again in that same season to 1M66341 for one episode. The paint, stance, wheels, lights, and exterior accessories all remain the same truck to the audience, while the plate quietly tells a different story. That one continuity oddity alone makes you wonder what is going on, because the multiple trucks used for the show are consistent in the big ways, yet not for this particular detail, but the tag-swapping madness doesn't end there. Then, the plate changes yet again to 1E49908 for Season 4 through the first half of Season 5, then switches one last time to 1E49903 in the Stolen Truck episode, when the pickup gets repainted as part of the story, and that one would have actually made sense to the viewer at least, but the others certainly do not. Those 5 different plate numbers, and possibly even more, is the clearest recurring inconsistency across the truck's stint in the show. I did not spot any other significant visual changes as the truck's model year. Paint scheme and accessory layout stayed surprisingly stable, better than most shows' character vehicles have anyway. So, the odd plate history becomes the best visual evidence of behind-the-scenes vehicle shuffling chaos. However, there is one more very big one-time inconsistency in the show that we'll dig into shortly. Fact number 7. The biggest standout change with Jon's truck in the show was that one of the trucks that was used in one of the most memorable episodes featuring it was not a 4x4 truck at all. For some of the dirt stunt work and the famous big jump in Season 3 Episode 19, simply entitled Off-Road, the show used at least one specially prepared two-wheel drive C1500 version of Jon's truck, dressed to match the familiar blue K1500 models. That makes it the standout exception of the group, because every normal version of Jon's pickup used elsewhere was a four-wheel drive K-Series truck. The two-wheel drive truck still carried the same basic visual disguise from afar, with the blue paint, graphics, sport truck attitude, and race number setup, but with different wheels and quite a bit different chassis configuration, of course. The two-wheel drive truck was not limited to the single jump stunt that it is most known for, however. It also shows up in actor-driven shots before the launch also, which makes the switch harder to catch during a casual watch. The same truck is used when Jon's pickup slides off of and then gets stuck on the off-track dirt mound. Those scenes needed a truck that could take front-end abuse, sit at odd angles, and be staged safely for the gag. Using a two-wheel drive version also made sense for stunt preparation because it was less complex, lighter, and easier to set up for the exact movement the scene needed, so it was a disguised stunt tool of sorts, not just a throwaway jump truck. Although, I should mention that the episode does not rely on the two-wheel drive truck alone. Many of the scenes still use the regular four-wheel drive versions of Jon's GMC, complete with the racing numbers added for the story and driving much faster than anyone should off-road with such a rigid, solid axle front and back chassis. That means the episode is quietly cutting between the regular Hero GMCs and the specially prepared two-wheel drive C1500 whenever the action calls for it. Same character vehicle, very different trucks on the underside, and built for different jobs. Fact number 8. Now, Let's talk about the truck's very last appearance in the show, which was in Season 5, Episode 17, entitled Alarmed, when Jon's GMC gets stolen and the not-too-bright car thieves that come up with one of the least convincing stolen vehicle disguise jobs in TV vehicle history. Their big idea is to repaint the truck and its accessories into a new color scheme, along with a few other minor changes, and then go driving it around as if it were their own. The shape, stance, sport bars, grill guard, and whole personality of the truck are still right there. The blue is gone, replaced by white and red striping, but the truck underneath is still Jon's GMC, just wearing a rushed all-female criminal group makeover. All they bothered with beyond the repainting of the body and add-on accessories was relocating the pair of KC Highlight off-road lights from the sport bar down to the grill guard, which changes the face of the truck only slightly, and changing the wheel and tire combo. The wheel and tire swap is the most notable visual change. They just swapped the GM 8-spoke steel wheels with Mickey Thompson Classic 3 polished 8-hole aluminum wheels instead, and wrapped them in Uniroyal brand Landtrack tires. That gives the stolen truck another, only minor change, a bit more shiny and aftermarket looking than the clean sport truck look Jon had, but that's all. It is a failed attempt at concealing the truck's former identity, and certainly not enough to erase one of the most recognizable personal vehicles in the series. They didn't even put in much effort or creativity into the license plate swap either. Before the theft, the truck is wearing 1E49908 plates. After the disguise, the new plate reads 1E49903, so only 5 numbers down from the original license plate number. For car thieves trying to make a stolen pickup disappear, that is hilariously lazy. After this episode, the trail goes cold for Jon's GMCs. Also, to answer a question I've received a few times about these GMC pickups from CHiPs, no, I could not find any verified production record, VIN trail, auction history, or ownership chain connecting them to other productions of the time with similar-looking trucks, such as the Rockford Files, Hooper, Every Which Way But Loose, or the Fall Guy. Those productions had their own similar GMCs, but Jon's truck stayed tied to CHiPs exclusively in the known record. Fact number 9. So, what did happen to the trucks after production ended, you ask? Well, post-production, the trail on Jon's GMCs gets surprisingly quiet. There is no verified auction listing, studio inventory card, restoration file, or public VIN records tying any surviving pickup back to the show. Larry Wilcox once stated that he did not take any of them home, and his reason was simple. Even though they looked good on camera, they were not in great shape. He also once mentioned later on that his own attempts to find out where the trucks went after production by asking those involved met a dead end as well. Those first-hand comments say a lot. The trucks had the screen presence viewers remember, but they were used-up Hollywood vehicles, transported often, repainted and redressed many times, and pushed hard enough that taking one home or even reselling them was not worth it for the time. That also explains why no clean ownership story has followed the truck into the collector world to date. Some lucky famous TV cars have a neat paper trail after filming, with studio sales, private owners, museum displays, or big money auctions. Jon's GMCs do not have that kind of public history. No confirmed survivor has surfaced with documentation strong enough to prove it was one of the CHiPs trucks. Jon's GMC trucks disappeared from the public record after their time on the show, but that is a quite common fate for hard-working television star vehicles from the late 1970s and 80s, unfortunately. Back then, they were not priceless nostalgia pieces, they were just beaten production vehicles whose job and purpose was finished. Fact number 10. Looking into the scale model world, although there haven't been much of any decent direct replicas of Jon's GMC officially released, and there haven't been a lot of third-gen GMC pickup, Fenderside/Chevy pickup stepside models released in general, we do have a few decent quite close options out there at least. As for diecast models, I couldn't find any good larger 1/25th or 1/18th scale models, but I did find this great 1/64th scale 1976 GMC Sierra Classic Fenderside pickup here from M2 Machines. It may be a 76 instead of a 78, but it even already has the correct sport bar and grill guard on it, which is pretty cool, so all it would really need to be a decent replica in this scale anyway is a repaint. These are on the current retail market and can be had for around the $10 to $20 mark. For the scale plastic model scene, there also aren't a lot of options either. Yes, there was actually a supposedly official replica model of a low-end snap kit by Revell, released many years ago, but those honestly were quite awful, and they didn't even get the bed type correct on it, or even the make of the truck itself correct for that matter. so don't bother hunting those down as they are super rare and ridiculously overpriced anyway. Instead, you skilled model builders will want to pick up this more recently released and much better quality 1/24th scale 1976 Chevy Sport step-side pickup from Revell for around $35. Yes, it's a 76 instead of a 78 and a Chevy instead of a GMC, but I know that matters not to a good custom model builder, and it is the closest thing you'll find on the current retail market to use as a base for a replica build. I will put links in the description below to where you can get the Revell kit and the M2 diecast model as well. By the way, folks, I have another film-related and in similar format YouTube channel called Mind Litter. If anyone is interested in hearing more about our favorite movies and TV shows beyond just the cars, such as other behind-the-scenes info, filming locations, and actor-related tidbits and such, I will put a link in the description below for those interested in checking it out. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw here. You guys are all great. See you next time.